Jun-ho pressed his face against the small window of the Earth ship. The stars looked different out here, far from home, cold and distant. He had been chosen to speak for all of humanity today. The weight of 7 billion people rested on his shoulders. "Sir, we're getting close," said Tae-min from his seat at the control panel. The young man's voice was steady, but Jun-ho could see his hands shaking slightly. They were all scared. Anyone with sense would be scared. The alien ships appeared first as tiny dots against the black of space. Then they grew larger and larger. Jun-ho's mouth went dry. He had seen the pictures, but seeing them in person was different. The enemy ships were massive. Each one was bigger than the largest city on Earth. There were dozens of them, maybe hundreds. "How many people do you think are on those ships?" asked Hye-jin. She sat at her computer watching the readings flow across her screen. Her job was to study the aliens and figure out how they fought. So far, the numbers did not look good for Earth. "Millions," Jun-ho said quietly. "Maybe tens of millions." Their own ship, the Defiance, was small by comparison. It carried only 50 people, but it was the fastest ship Earth had ever built and the most advanced. It had taken them 3 days to reach this meeting point at the edge of the solar system. Captain Da-eun walked onto the bridge. She was a small woman, but everyone respected her. She had fought in the Mars colonies during the uprising there. She knew how to handle herself in tough situations. "Status report," she said. "The alien fleet is holding position," Tae-min reported. "They're not moving closer to Earth. Yet." "Good. That means they want to talk first." Da-eun looked at Jun-ho. "You ready for this?" Jun-ho nodded, though he did not feel ready at all. How could anyone be ready to meet beings from another world? Beings who had conquered half the galaxy? The aliens had arrived 2 weeks ago. Their ships had appeared without warning around the outer planets. They had not attacked. Instead, they had sent a message. It was simple and direct. They wanted to meet with Earth's leaders. They had something to discuss. Earth's governments had argued for days about what to do. Some wanted to fight immediately. Others wanted to surrender before any shooting started. In the end, they had decided to talk first. That was why Jun-ho was here. "Incoming message," Tae-min announced. "They want us to come aboard their command ship." Da-eun frowned. "That could be a trap." "It could be," Jun-ho agreed. "But we have to take the risk. If we don't talk to them, they might just attack Earth directly." The alien command ship was even bigger up close. It was shaped like a huge triangle, with strange lights running along its sides. As their shuttle approached, a bay door opened, in the ship's belly. It was large enough to hold a dozen ships like theirs. The inside of the alien ship was dark and cold. The walls were made of some kind of black metal that seemed to absorb light. Strange symbols were carved into the surfaces. The air smelled different, too, like ozone after a lightning strike. 2 aliens met them at the shuttle bay. They were tall and thin, with gray skin and large black eyes. They wore long robes that covered most of their bodies. When they spoke, their voices came from small devices attached to their chests. The words were in perfect English. "Welcome," one of them said. "I am Advisor Kelthon. You will follow me." They walked through long corridors filled with more aliens. Some looked like Kelthon, others were different. Jun-ho saw beings with 4 arms, others with scales instead of skin, and some that looked almost like humans except for their bright blue skin. All of them stopped what they were doing to stare at the Earth delegation. "So many different species," Hye-jin whispered. "They really have conquered a lot of worlds." The meeting room was vast. The ceiling was so high that Jun-ho could barely see it in the dim light. At the far end of the room sat a figure on what looked like a throne. This being was larger than the others, with red skin and golden eyes that seemed to glow in the darkness. "I am Supreme Regent Vorthak," the figure said. His voice was deep and powerful. I speak for the Galactic Empire. You are the representatives of the species called humans? Yes, Junho said, stepping forward. His voice sounded small in the huge room. I am Ambassador Junho. I speak for Earth and all humanity. Vorthak leaned forward on his throne. Good. Then we can begin. Your species has caught our attention. Your world sits at an important location in this part of the galaxy. We have use for your planet and its resources. What kind of use? Junho asked. Your world contains materials we need, rare elements that can power our ships and weapons. We are prepared to make you an offer. Junho waited. His heart was pounding so hard he was sure everyone could hear it. We will allow your species to continue existing, Vorthak continued. In exchange, you will give us control of your world. We will relocate your people to areas we choose. You will work for us, mining the materials we need. In return, we will protect you from other threats in the galaxy. The room fell silent. Junho could hear his own breathing. Behind him, he sensed Hyejin and Taimin waiting for his response. Captain Da-Un stood perfectly still, her hand resting on her weapon. And if we refuse? Junho asked. Vorthak's golden eyes seemed to grow brighter. No species has ever refused our offer. It would be unwise to be the first. To demonstrate his point, Vorthak gestured to a screen on the wall. It showed space outside the ship. In the distance was a large asteroid, probably 10 miles across. Vorthak spoke a single word in his own language. A beam of pure energy shot out from one of the Empire ships. The asteroid simply vanished. Not destroyed or broken apart. It was there one moment, gone the next. This is what happens to things that displease us, Vorthak said. Your cooperation would be much preferred. Junho looked at his companions. Da-Un's face was stone. Hyejin was studying her readings, her mind working fast. Taimin looked terrified but determined. We need time to consider your offer, Junho said. Time? Vorthak seemed amused. Very well. You have one of your Earth days. Return here tomorrow with your answer. As they walked back to their shuttle, none of them spoke. The weight of the decision was too heavy for words. When they were finally back aboard the Defiance, Captain Da-Un called them together. Well, she asked. The energy signature from their weapon, Hyejin said suddenly. I got readings on it. There might be a way to counter it. Maybe. Maybe isn't good enough, Da-Un said. But it's better than nothing. Junho looked out at the stars again. Earth was out there somewhere, a small blue dot in the darkness. 7 billion people were waiting for his answer. He knew what that answer would be. He had known it from the moment Vorthak made his offer. We go back tomorrow, he said, and we tell them no. Supreme Regent Vorthak stared at the empty space where the human shuttle had been. His golden eyes burned with something that might have been confusion. In 3,000 years of conquest, no species had ever asked for time to consider surrender. They either submitted immediately or died fighting. There was never a third option. Regent, said Advisor Kelthon, approaching the throne carefully. The humans seem different. Different how? Vorthak's voice was like grinding stone. They did not show fear when you demonstrated our power. The female was actually taking measurements of our weapons. The male in uniform kept her hand on her weapon the entire time. These are not the actions of a species ready to submit. Vorthak stood up from his throne. He was over 8 feet tall, and his presence filled the room. Call War Marshal Krugen. It seems we may need to remind the humans why the Empire has never been refused. Meanwhile, the Defiance raced back toward Earth. In the small communications room, Taimin worked frantically to send their report back home. The quantum transmitter was the fastest way to communicate across the solar system, but it still took time. Earth Command, this is Ambassador Junho, he spoke into the device. The Empire has made their demands. They want our planet and all our resources. They're giving us 1 day to surrender completely. The response came back 30 minutes. Later, it was President Sujin herself. Her voice sounded tired but determined. Ambassador, what is your recommendation? Junho looked at his companions. Captain Da-un nodded once. Hae-jin was still studying the data from the alien weapon, but she looked up and gave him a thumbs up. Tai-min just smiled. Madam President, Junho said into the transmitter, I recommend we tell them to go to hell. On Earth, President Sujin sat in the emergency meeting room deep beneath the capital. Around her were the leaders of every major nation, connected by secure video links. The room was quiet as they listened to the ambassador's report. They can destroy asteroids with a single shot, reported General Kim, the head of Earth's space forces. Our best weapons can barely scratch something that big. But we're not defenseless, said Dr. Seok-jin, speaking from his laboratory in Antarctica. The old scientist looked tired but excited. We've been preparing for this day longer than anyone knows. Project Barrier? Asked President Sujin. Yes, we can activate it now. The network is ready. 20 years ago, Dr. Seok-jin had been studying Earth's magnetic field when he made a discovery. Earth sat at a unique point in space where quantum energy flowed in unusual patterns. With the right technology, those patterns could be controlled and focused. The result would be a defensive barrier unlike anything in the galaxy. The project had been kept secret for decades. Only a few hundred people knew it existed. They had built quantum field generators at strategic points around the globe. Hidden facilities in the Amazon, under the ice in Antarctica, deep in the ocean trenches, and in orbit around Earth. How long to activate? President Sujin asked. 6 hours, Dr. Seok-jin replied. But once we turn it on, there's no going back. If it doesn't work, we'll have made the Empire very angry for nothing. In a laboratory complex beneath the South Pole, engineer Yoon-ah ran final checks on the quantum field generators. She had been working on this project for 5 years. Since graduating from university, the mathematics were incredibly complex, but the basic idea was simple. Use Earth's position in space to create an energy shield that would protect the entire solar system. Field generators at 97% efficiency, she reported to Dr. Seok-jin. We're as ready as we'll ever be. Physicist Min-ho worked at another console, monitoring the quantum flux readings from around the world. Antarctic Station is green, Amazon Station is green, Pacific Station is green. All orbital platforms are reporting ready. Dr. Seok-jin looked at the main screen, which showed a map of Earth with glowing dots marking each generator site. Begin synchronization sequence. Across the globe, massive machines hummed to life. They had been built using technology that was decades ahead of anything the public knew about. Quantum computers calculated field harmonics. Fusion reactors provided enormous amounts of power. And slowly, carefully, an invisible barrier began to form around Earth. Back on the Defiance, Hae-jin was sharing her analysis with Captain Da-un. Their weapon uses focused quantum energy, she explained. It destabilizes matter at the subatomic level. That's why the asteroid didn't explode. It just stopped existing. Can we defend against it? Da-un asked. Maybe. If we can create a quantum field that absorbs and redirects that energy. Hae-jin paused, checking her calculations again. Actually, there might already be work on this back on Earth. Some of the research I've seen hints at projects I don't have clearance for. Classified projects? Very classified. Captain Da-yun smiled grimly. Let's hope our scientists have been busy. War Marshal Krugen arrived on the Empire's command ship just as the human shuttle was returning. He was a veteran of 100 conquered worlds, and his presence made even other Empire officers nervous. His species looked like armored reptiles with scales that could deflect most weapons and claws that could cut through steel. Report, he growled to Vorthak. The humans have asked for time to consider our offer. I suspect they are planning to refuse. Krugen's laugh sounded like rocks grinding together. Refuse? That would be a first. What do we know about their military capabilities? Primitive, Advisor Kelthon said, displaying tactical data on a screen. Chemical rockets, nuclear weapons, some energy weapons, but nothing that could threaten our ships. Then why do they think they can refuse us? Unknown. But they are returning now. We will have our answer soon. The Defiance docked with the Empire command ship exactly 24 hours after their first meeting. This time, Junho walked with more confidence. Behind him, his team looked determined rather than afraid. They were led to the same vast meeting room. Supreme Regent Vorthak sat on his throne, but now War Marshal Krugen stood beside him. The air felt more dangerous than before. Human Ambassador, Vorthak said, you have had time to consider our generous offer. What is your answer? Junho stepped forward. His voice was clear and strong. The people of Earth have considered your offer. Our answer is no. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the alien advisors seemed shocked. Vorthak's golden eyes burned brighter. No? The word came out as a whisper. No, Junho repeated. Earth is not for sale. We will not be your slaves. We will not mine our world empty for your benefit. You are not welcome in our solar system. Leave immediately. Krugen stepped forward, his claws extending. You dare to give us orders? I dare, Junho said simply. Vorthak rose from his throne. His rage was visible now, a red aura that seemed to pulse around his body. You have made a terrible mistake, humans. We will take your world by force, and when we are done, there will be nothing left of your species but dust. You can try, said Captain Daun, speaking for the first time. Her hand was on her weapon again. Try? Krugen laughed. We have conquered 1,000 worlds. What makes you think you can stop us? Junho smiled. It was not a friendly smile. Because we drew a line in space, and that line will hold. As they walked back to their shuttle, alarms began blaring throughout. The Empire ship. Something was happening near Earth, something unprecedented. The quantum field barrier had activated. For the first time in the Empire's long history, they had encountered something they could not simply blast through or walk around. Earth had vanished behind a wall of energy that their sensors couldn't even properly detect. Supreme Regent Vorthak stood on his bridge, staring at the readings in disbelief. The humans had actually done it. They had said no to the Empire and backed it up with technology that shouldn't exist. Prepare the fleet, he ordered. We'll see how long their little barrier holds up. Admiral Thexar commanded the Empire's first attack wave. He was a veteran warrior from the Sectar species, with 4 arms and skin like living metal. He had broken the defenses of 30 worlds, and he expected Earth to be no different. All ships, prepare for assault, he commanded from the bridge of his destroyer. Around him, 50 warships moved into attack formation. Their weapons powered up, energy crackling along their hulls. Target the 3rd planet, Thexar ordered. Maximum firepower. The attack began with a storm of energy beams that could melt mountains. Plasma torpedoes that could crack open moons streaked through space. The combined firepower was enough to destroy a small star. All of it struck the quantum barrier around Earth's solar system and simply vanished. What? Thexar stared at his instruments in disbelief. Fire again! The second wave of attacks met the same fate. The energy weapons disappeared into the barrier like water soaking into sand. The plasma torpedoes hit the field and were absorbed. Completely. Admiral, his weapons officer reported, our attacks are having no effect. The barrier is absorbing all incoming energy. On Earth, Dr. Seok Jin watched the readings from his control center. The quantum field generators were working perfectly. Every attack from the Empire ships actually made the barrier stronger, feeding more energy into the network. Yuna, he called to his chief engineer. What's our field strength? 112% of normal, she reported with a grin. Their attacks are charging our system. We could keep this up for years. President Sujin stood behind them, watching the battle on the main screen. It was amazing to see Earth's enemies firing everything they had, only to accomplish nothing. "How long can we maintain this?" she asked. "As long as they keep shooting at us," Dr. Sok-jin said. "The quantum field converts their attack energy into power for our generators. They're actually helping us stay protected." Minho looked up from his calculations. "But there's more. I'm detecting quantum resonance patterns in the field. I think we can reverse the polarity." "What would that do?" "Instead of absorbing energy, we could project it outward. Turn our shield into a weapon." Back in space, Admiral Thexar was growing desperate. He had thrown everything at the human barrier and achieved nothing. His reputation was on the line. The Empire did not tolerate failure. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving a transmission from inside the barrier." "Put it on screen." The image that appeared was a human female in a military uniform. She had short black hair and calm, steady eyes. Behind her was what looked like a military command center. "This is Admiral Gite of the Earth Defense Force," she said. "You have attacked our homeworld without provocation. You have 30 seconds to withdraw your forces." Thexar's metal skin flushed with anger. "You dare to threaten me? Your pathetic shield won't hold forever." "You're right," Admiral Gite said with a slight smile. "It won't just hold. Observe." The quantum barrier around Earth suddenly flared, with brilliant light. Then, impossible beams of energy shot outward from the field. They moved faster than anything the Empire had ever seen, crossing the distance to Thexar's fleet in seconds. The first beam struck the destroyer next to Thexar's ship. The massive warship simply ceased to exist, not destroyed, not damaged, gone, just like the asteroid Vorthak had demonstrated on earlier. "Impossible," Thexar whispered. More beams lanced out from Earth's barrier. Each one erased an Empire warship completely. In less than a minute, half of Thexar's attack force had been eliminated. "All ships, retreat!" Thexar screamed into his communications system, but it was too late for many of them. By the time the surviving Empire ships reached the edge of the solar system, only 12 of the original 50 remained. It was the Empire's first major defeat in over 500 years. The news traveled fast across the galaxy. The Empire's quantum communication network carried the impossible story to every conquered world. Humanity had not only refused to surrender, they had fought back and won. On the world of Corvani Prime, the local population heard the news in stunned silence. They had been slaves to the Empire for 200 years. The idea that someone could actually defeat Empire forces seemed like a fairy tale. "Is it true?" asked Malketh, a leader of the underground resistance. He was speaking to his contact in the Empire's communication center, a sympathizer who risked death to pass along information. "It's true," the contact confirmed. An entire attack fleet was destroyed. The Empire command is in chaos. Some are calling for massive reinforcements. Others want to avoid Earth completely. Similar conversations were happening on dozens of worlds. The Zephyrian Collective, the Stellar Consortium, the Andromedans, all the Empire's subjects were learning that the invincible conquerors could be defeated. Supreme Regent Vorthak paced his command chamber like a caged animal. The report from Admiral Thexar lay on his desk, each word like a knife in his pride. Humanity had not just resisted, they had humiliated the Empire. "How?" he demanded of his science advisors. "How can a primitive species have technology we've never seen before?" "Unknown, Regent," replied Chief Scientist Mordak. "Our understanding of quantum fields is advanced, but their application is completely beyond our knowledge. They're using principles that shouldn't be possible." War Marshal Krugen entered the chamber, his scales scraping against the metal floor. "Regent, I've analyzed the battle data. The humans didn't just get lucky. Their technology is actually superior to ours in this specific area." "Superior?" Vorthak's voice was dangerous. Their quantum barrier doesn't just defend, it can attack, absorb energy, and apparently extend across an entire star system. We have nothing that can match it. Then we need more ships, more firepower. With respect, Regent, I don't think raw firepower is the answer. We need to understand their technology before we can defeat it. On Earth, the mood was very different. In the Defense Command Center, Admiral Guite was coordinating with military leaders around the world. The first battle was won, but everyone knew the Empire would be back. "Status report," she said to the assembled officers. Commander Wu Jin, head of the Space Fleet, spoke first. "Our quantum drive ships are performing beyond expectations. We can phase through normal shields and armor. The Empire won't be expecting that." "Good. What about our defensive preparations?" "Field generators are at full power," reported Dr. Seok Jin via video link. "We can maintain the barrier indefinitely as long as we have power sources, and every attack they make just gives us more energy to work with." Scientist Yun Ji had been working on new applications for the quantum technology. "I've been studying the data from today's battle. The quantum field isn't just defensive. We can use it to enhance our own ships and weapons, make them faster, stronger, more accurate." "How long until those upgrades are ready?" "Give me a week." Admiral Guite nodded. "You have it, because I don't think the Empire is going to give up after one defeat." She was right. Even as Earth celebrated its victory, massive Empire fleets were moving toward human space. War Marshal Krugen was assembling the largest attack force in the Empire's history. Hundreds of ships, millions of soldiers, weapons that could crack planets. But he was also making a mistake. He was thinking like every other enemy the Empire had ever faced. He was preparing to fight humans the way they had always fought, with overwhelming force and superior numbers. What he didn't understand was that humans didn't fight like other species. They didn't just use better technology or bigger weapons. They used their brains. They adapted. They found ways to turn their enemies' strengths into weaknesses. In a secret facility on Earth's moon, engineer Bora was working on something that would change everything. She was young, barely out of university, but she had an idea that might just save not only Earth, but every enslaved world in the galaxy. She was building a quantum transmitter that could extend Earth's protective barrier to other star systems. If it worked, humanity wouldn't just be defending themselves. They would be liberating others. The Empire had ruled through fear for thousands of years. But fear only works until someone stands up and fights back. And once one person fights, others start to believe they can fight too. The siege of Earth was just beginning. But across the galaxy, something else was beginning too. Hope. The siege had lasted 3 months when Emperor Zalthar himself arrived at the edge of Earth's solar system. His ship, the Imperial Dreadnought Dominion, was larger than most cities. It carried enough firepower to destroy entire worlds, and it had never been defeated in battle. Zalthar had ruled the Empire for 800 years. He had conquered more worlds than any leader in galactic history. The idea that a single species could resist him was not just surprising, it was personally offensive. "Show me this barrier," he commanded from his throne room aboard the Dominion. The main screen displayed Earth's solar system, surrounded by a shimmering field of energy that seemed to pulse with its own life. Dozens of Empire ships hung just outside the barrier, unable to pass through. "We've tried everything, Emperor," reported War Marshal Krugen. "Energy weapons, plasma torpedoes, even antimatter bombs. Nothing penetrates their defenses." "And their counterattacks?" "Devastating. We've lost over 200 ships attempting to breach the barrier. Each time we attack, they absorb our energy and use it to destroy more of our forces." Zalthar's ancient eyes burned with cold fury. In all his centuries of conquest, no species had ever humiliated the Empire like this. "What do we know about their technology?" Chief Scientist Mordak approached the throne carefully. "It appears to be based on quantum field manipulation, Emperor. But their application is far beyond anything in our databases. They're using principles that our best scientists say are impossible. Nothing is impossible. Everything can be broken. Yes, Emperor, but perhaps we should consider negotiation. The humans have proven they can defend themselves. Maybe we could reach some kind of agreement. Zalthar's glare silenced the scientist immediately. The Empire does not negotiate with rebellious subjects. We destroy them. On Earth, Dr. Ha-Young made a breakthrough that would change the course of the war. She had been studying the quantum field patterns around other star systems, looking for connections to Earth's unique position in space. "I found it," she announced to the Emergency Council meeting. President Sujin, Admiral Gite, and the other leaders listened carefully as she explained her discovery. "The quantum fields aren't isolated," Dr. Ha-Young said, displaying a map of nearby star systems on the screen. "They're all connected, like a vast network spanning the galaxy. Earth just happens to be at one of the major junction points." "What does that mean for our defenses?" asked Admiral Gite. "It means we can extend our protection to other worlds. If we build quantum transmitters at key locations, we can create barriers around other star systems, just like the one protecting Earth." President Sujin leaned forward. "How long would that take?" "The first transmitter is already built. Engineer Bora finished it yesterday. We could protect another world within days. The implications were enormous. Earth wouldn't just be defending itself anymore. They could free other worlds from Empire control." The first test came when the Andromedans made secret contact with Earth. Their home system was 3 light-years away, and they had been planning a rebellion against the Empire. For decades, all they needed was protection from Imperial retaliation. Captain So-Young led the mission to Andromedan space. Her ship, the Liberation, was equipped with the new quantum transmitter and a crew of volunteers who knew they might not return home. "Remember," Admiral Gite told them before they left, "you're not just carrying technology, you're carrying hope. Every enslaved world in the galaxy is watching to see if freedom is possible." The Liberation used the new quantum drive system to travel faster than anything the Empire had ever built. By manipulating space itself, they could cross vast distances in hours instead of weeks. When they arrived at the Andromedan homeworld, they found an Empire battle fleet already in orbit. The local population's rebellion had been discovered. Imperial forces were preparing to bombard the planet's cities. "So much for secrecy," muttered So-Young's second-in-command, Lieutenant Teho. "Doesn't matter," So-Young replied. "We're here now. Activate the quantum transmitter." The device powered up, drawing energy from the same field network that protected Earth. Within minutes, a shimmering barrier appeared around the Andromedan system. Just as the Empire ships opened fire, the Imperial weapons struck the barrier and vanished harmlessly. But unlike at Earth, this barrier immediately began firing back. Quantum beams lanced out from the field, striking Empire ships with devastating effect. Admiral Bektar, commanding the Empire fleet, watched his ships disappear one by one. "Impossible! How are they doing this?" His answer came when more ships dropped out of quantum space around his fleet, human vessels, moving like nothing he had ever seen. They phased through his ship's shields as if they weren't there, firing weapons that seemed to ignore armor and defensive systems entirely. "Retreat!" Bektar ordered, but it was too late. The human ships moved too fast, struck too precisely. Within an hour, the entire Empire fleet had been destroyed or captured. The liberation of the Andromedan system sent shockwaves across the galaxy. For the first time in Empire history, a conquered world had been freed by outside intervention. More importantly, other species now had proof that Earth's protection could be extended to them. Rebellion broke out on dozens of worlds simultaneously. The Corvani threw off their imperial governors. The Stellar Consortium declared independence. Even some of the Empire's military units began deserting, unwilling to fight a war they no longer believed they could win. Emperor Zalthar received these reports with growing rage. His empire, built over millennia, was crumbling because of one stubborn species on a backwater world. "Bring me the doomsday weapon," he commanded. War Marshal Krugen hesitated. "Emperor, that device has never been tested. The risk of not using it is greater. The humans must be stopped before this rebellion spreads further." The doomsday weapon was the Empire's most closely guarded secret. Built using technology stolen from a dozen conquered civilizations, it could theoretically collapse the quantum fields that held reality together. It was a weapon that could destroy not just planets or star systems, but the very fabric of space itself. The weapon required enormous amounts of psychic energy to operate. For centuries, the Empire had been enslaving species with mental abilities, using them as living batteries to power their most advanced technology. Thousands of psychic beings were connected to the weapon's control systems, their minds linked in agonizing unity. As the weapon charged, these enslaved psychics began to scream. On Earth, sensitive individuals suddenly doubled over in pain. Something terrible was happening in the quantum field network. Dr. Ha Young felt it first, a wrongness in the fundamental structure of space around the Empire fleet. "They're doing something," she gasped, clutching her head. "Something that's hurting the quantum fields themselves." Engineer Bo-Ra was working frantically at her control station. "I'm reading massive distortions in the network. Whatever they're powering up, it's designed to tear holes in reality itself." "Can our barriers stop it?" asked President Su Jin. "I don't know. This is beyond anything we've prepared for." Emperor Zalthar stood before the doomsday weapon as it reached full charge. The device was enormous, filling an entire chamber of his ship with crystalline structures that pulsed with stolen psychic energy. At its heart, thousands of enslaved minds writhed in shared agony. "Fire!" he commanded. The weapon discharged, sending a wave of destructive force toward Earth that was designed to unravel the quantum barriers and collapse the solar system itself. It was the Empire's ultimate expression of power, the ability to destroy reality itself rather than accept defeat. But Bo-Ra had been working on more than just quantum transmitters. In her research, she had discovered something that the Empire's scientists had missed. The same network that connected quantum fields across the galaxy also connected the minds of psychic beings. Every enslaved psychic in the Empire was part of a vast mental web that could be accessed through the quantum network. As the doomsday weapon fired, Bo-Ra activated her own device. Not a weapon, but a liberation tool. Quantum energy flowed through the psychic network, reaching every enslaved mind in the Empire and breaking the mental chains that held them captive. Thousands of psychic beings, free for the first time in centuries, turned their combined mental power against their former masters. The doomsday weapon, instead of destroying Earth, began tearing the Empire fleet apart from within. Emperor Zalthar watched in horror as his own ultimate weapon consumed his ships. The Dominion itself began to shake apart as psychic energy ran wild through its systems. For the first time in 800 years, the Emperor knew fear. The Imperial Dreadnought Dominion shook violently as psychic energy tore through its systems. Emperor Zalthar gripped his throne as sparks flew from control panels around him. The doomsday weapon, meant to destroy Earth, was instead destroying his own fleet. "Report!" he shouted over the chaos. "The psychic network has been compromised," War Marshal Krugen reported, his voice strained. "All enslaved psychics across the fleet have broken free. They're turning their powers against us." "How is that possible?" "The humans, Emperor. Somehow they accessed our psychic control network through their quantum fields. Every mind we've enslaved for centuries is now fighting back." Throughout the Empire fleet, the same scene was playing out on hundreds of ships. Psychic beings who had been prisoners for decades or centuries suddenly found their mental chains broken. Their rage, built up over lifetimes of slavery, exploded outward. On the command ship of the Sector battle group, Admiral Vexenon watched his bridge crew collapse as psychic attacks overwhelmed their minds. The ship's weapons turned on nearby Empire vessels, firing without any commands from the bridge. "All ships, abandon the psychic-controlled systems," Vexenon ordered. But it was too late. Half his fleet was already tearing itself apart. Engineer Bora watched the readings from her control station on Earth. The quantum network was alive with psychic energy as thousands of enslaved minds celebrated their freedom. Her liberation device had worked beyond her wildest hopes. "The Empire fleet is breaking apart," she reported to Admiral Guite. "Their own psychics are destroying them from within." "What about their conventional weapons?" "Most of their advanced. Technology depends on psychic control systems. Without enslaved psychics to run them, their faster-than-light drives are failing. Their energy weapons are going offline. Even their life support systems are shutting down." Dr. Ha Young looked up from her instruments. "There's more. The psychic liberation is spreading through their communication network. Every Empire ship in the galaxy is being affected." On the bridge of the Dominion, Emperor Zalthar realized the scope of the disaster. His empire hadn't just lost a battle, it was collapsing everywhere at once. Without psychic slaves to maintain their technology, the Empire's vast fleets were becoming helpless. "Can we regain control?" he asked Chief Scientist Mordak. "Impossible, Emperor. The humans have freed every psychic mind in our network. We can't re-enslave them without the control systems, and we can't repair the control systems without the psychics. Then we fight with conventional weapons. Our conventional weapons are centuries out of date. We've relied on psychic-enhanced technology for so long that our regular systems are primitive by comparison." Zalthar's ancient face twisted with rage and desperation. In 800 years of rule, he had never faced a defeat like this. The humans hadn't just defended themselves. They had destroyed the very foundation of his empire. Across the galaxy, the effects of the psychic liberation were spreading. On conquered worlds, Empire garrisons found their weapons and vehicles shutting down as psychic control systems failed. Local populations, seeing their oppressors suddenly helpless, rose in rebellion. The Corvani resistance, led by Malketh, stormed the Imperial Governor's palace as the building's defensive systems went dark. "The humans did it," Malketh told his fighters. "They actually freed us all." On Zephyrian Prime, the collective secret independence movement emerged from hiding to take control of government buildings. Their leaders had been in contact with Earth through quantum transmissions, coordinating their uprising with the psychic liberation. General Han Wu coordinated Earth's response to the Galactic rebellion from the Defense Command Center. Maps showed Empire territories lighting up with revolt as world after world declared independence. "Status report from the Andromedan sector," he announced to the assembled officers. "Their quantum barrier is holding strong. 3 more Empire fleets have been destroyed trying to retake the system." "What about the liberation fleets?" asked Admiral Guite. "Captain So Young has successfully established quantum barriers around 12 star systems. Each one is now protected and free from Empire control. We're calling it the Terran Alliance." President Su Jin watched the reports with satisfaction, but also concern. "What about Emperor Zalthar himself? He won't give up easily." "His flagship is crippled but still intact," reported Admiral Ji Hoon, who commanded Earth's space defense fleet. "Most of the Empire fleet has either been destroyed or abandoned ship, but the Emperor himself is still out there." On the dying Dominion, Emperor Zalthar made a final desperate decision. If he couldn't rule the galaxy anymore, he would at least take the humans with him. The ship still had conventional nuclear weapons, crude but destructive. "Set course for Earth," he ordered. "We'll ram their barrier. Even if it destroys us, the impact might disrupt their quantum field." But War Marshal Krugen had had enough. He had served the Empire faithfully for centuries, but watching psychic slaves break free had shown him truths he had tried to ignore. The Empire wasn't a force for order and peace. It was built on cruelty and oppression. No, Krugen said simply. What did you say? I said no, Emperor. I will not be part of a suicide attack on civilians. Zalthar drew his energy weapon, but Krugen was faster. His claws struck the Emperor's hand, sending the weapon flying. Around the bridge, other officers began to stand up. The spell of fear that had held the Empire together for millennia was finally broken. The humans were right, Krugen said, his voice carrying clearly through the bridge. Sometimes you have to draw a line and say no more. Emperor Zalthar, for the first time in 8 centuries, was alone. His officers had turned against him. His fleets were destroyed. His empire was crumbling. He looked at the view screen showing Earth, still protected by its quantum barrier, and finally understood that he had lost. 3 months later, Ambassador Jun-Ho stood before the newly formed Galactic Liberation Council. Representatives from dozens of free worlds filled the great assembly hall on the space station that orbited Earth. The station had been built using quantum field technology, making it the most advanced structure in the galaxy. 6 months ago, Jun-Ho began, the Empire came to our world and demanded our surrender. They told us we had no choice but to submit. Today I stand before you as proof that there is always a choice. The assembly hall erupted in applause. Delegates from the Andromedans, the Corvani, the Zephyrians, and dozens of other species cheered the man who had first dared to say no to the Empire. The Terran Alliance now protects over 50 star systems, Jun-Ho continued. Our quantum barrier network ensures that no world ever has to face conquest alone again. But this alliance is not about human dominance. It's about the right of all species to choose their own destiny. In the audience, Engineer Bo-Ra smiled as she watched the ceremony. Her liberation device had not just freed the psychic slaves, it had broken the Empire's hold on the galaxy forever. Now she was working on new projects, ways to use quantum technology to help rebuild the worlds damaged by centuries of imperial rule. Dr. Ha Young sat nearby, taking notes for her research on interspecies quantum field harmonics. She had discovered that different species could enhance the quantum network in unique ways, making the Alliance's defenses stronger with every new member. President Su Jin watched from the diplomatic section, proud of what humanity had accomplished, but humble about their role. Earth had drawn the line in space, but it was the courage of all the galaxy's oppressed peoples that had won the war. War Marshal Krugen, now calling himself simply Krugen, served as the Alliance's military advisor. His knowledge of Empire tactics and weaknesses had helped liberate dozens of worlds. He had found redemption in fighting for freedom instead of conquest. Emperor Zalthar was in a detention facility on a neutral world, awaiting trial for crimes against sentient beings. Without his psychic control networks, he was just an old being who had lived too long and hurt too many people. The galaxy would decide his fate through justice, not vengeance. Admiral Gite now commanded the Alliance Defense Force, a fleet of ships from dozens of worlds united in common purpose. They didn't conquer, they protected, they didn't enslave, they liberated. As the ceremony continued, a new delegation arrived at the station. They were from a distant galaxy, one that had heard rumors of the Empire's fall and wanted to learn about these humans who had started a revolution with a simple word. No Jun-Ho smiled as he watched them arrive. The message was spreading beyond their own galaxy now. Somewhere out there, other empires were learning that their subjects had choices. Other species were discovering that freedom was possible. We drew a line in space, Jun-Ho said, finishing his speech to the Liberation Council. We said that some things could not be taken, some people could not be enslaved, some freedoms could not be surrendered. That line still holds today, and it will hold tomorrow, and for all the tomorrows to come. The applause that followed could be heard throughout the station. It was the sound of hope made real, of freedom defended, of a galaxy learning that sometimes the most powerful word in any language is simply no. Earth had refused the Empire access. But in doing so, they had opened the door to something far greater, a future where every world could choose its own path among the stars.